Here I am underneath the thinking tree. Noise in the background is the towpath being cleared. Oops. And I'm here after having re-emerged from roughly 3 days, and it's usually 3 days, of a nasty bout of negative thinking. It's a lot better than it used to be, and I think part of that's due a great deal, I think, to meditation as well. But the depressions I used to get were horrific, and so this one wasn't great. They're never great, and they generally take about 3 days. In my case, it's 3 days of just awfulness, really, and no amount of thinking positively. That's why it's not a good idea for people with depression to just say, oh, we'll just be positive, or well, don't think like that, or it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I was just thinking about it then underneath the thinking tree, which is that tree there, and I thought, it's like somebody's locked you in a room for 3 days where they continuously, 24 hours, 7 days a week, it feels like, it's only 3 days in my case, play awful audio and video at you. I mean, like, you know, continuous awful video nasties, and just constant audio telling you how bad and awful everything is, and how worthless everything is, and how worthless you are, and blah blah blah, everything you can think of to put yourself down, continuously being played like water torture. And when you re-emerge, like now, you see it for what it is. You know, you see it for the ridiculous illusion that it is. But in the moment that you're in there, it's not an illusion, it's your reality. And it's an awful reality. And you can't think outside of that room. So to think, well, just think positively, or just smile and be happy and stuff, doesn't work. Inside that room, there is only that hellish misery. There is no reality outside of that room. It's just that. That's your reality for that period, however long it is. I have people who have that for weeks, months, years, and my heart goes out to you, it really does. So you're left with that reality and nothing else, and to think outside of that reality is impossible. That is your reality. There is no outside. Everything that happens in that room appears to be true. It's only when you emerge, when you're released after 3 days, and the incessant horrible noises, screams, wailings, negative thoughts, and the incessant visuals that go along with it stop, that you realise that this was not real. And you would think then that, knowing that, the next time it happens, which is sort of what I do as well sometimes, the next time that happens, I'm going to know that that's the truth. I'm going to know that that's not reality. So I'll be prepared, and when I go in there, I'll tell myself, this is not real, and everything's going to be okay. But that doesn't work, because as soon as you enter that room, that's your reality. The person that you were telling yourself then, don't worry, this is not real, that's some kind of idiot outside somewhere, you know, wherever, telling you lies, because you know that this is real, because here you are in the reality. So that doesn't work either. You have moments where you're able to sort of realize what you're doing, you know, realize that you're indulging in self-pity, and you sort of get a glimpse of that, but then the reality of negative thinking and depression drags you back in again, and all of that kind of thing. Trying to think logically and clearly about it becomes the unreal part, and the real part becomes what you're experiencing at that time in the room. When you emerge, of course, you realise this is all stupid. And luckily I don't have many of them anymore, and they're only 3 days, like I say, and they're not as bad as they used to be, and this is the first one for a long time. Probably makes sense to somebody somewhere, that they realise that once you're in the depression, there is no outside the depression. That's the point. You can't think outside and say, well, I'll just cheer up, or I'll just do this, or I'll just wait until it's over because it's not real. You know, even though my experience tells me over and over again, over years, that it's not real, and I emerge from this eventually. That's not the way you feel when you're in there. When you're in there, you're in there. And I'd love to give you a magic bullet and say, well, this is what you do. There isn't one, I don't think. Or possibly there is through therapies and things, but I just ride the storm for the 3 days and try and put things in place outside of that so that I don't get dragged into the room. I think that's what meditation is good for, is useful for. The reality outside of the room before it happens, to strengthen that reality, to make that a better, worthwhile place, so that when you have to go into the room, it's maybe not as horrific, or doesn't have as much as a hold as it would normally have. And then when you re-emerge, you can go back to reinforcing something useful and positive, and so on and so forth. Maybe that's why they've gotten less. Maybe that's why they're less intense. Maybe that's why they happen not as often. I feel like it's has a lot to do with meditation and the things I put in place outside of the depressive phases to strengthen me and bolster me, and, you know, physical training. I go out and train on the bars, do calisthenics, I do yoga, I do some weights sometimes. I'll go out for freezing cold runs in winter with just shorts on. I'll get into freezing cold water like that in winter, have freezing cold showers like I did this morning. Everything to sort of bolster this part of yourself that's not in the depression, so that when the depression happens, the effects are not as horrific. But it's been such a long time that I'd forgotten, really. I'd not thought about that for a long time, and then the last 3 days, wham. If anyone can relate to that, and I'm sure there are lots of people who can, leave your comments. You're not the only one. There are so many people I've met who have various versions of this. Mine is almost, it's still cruel and horrible, but it's almost laughable in comparison to some people's depressions. And I used to be a friend of mine with catatonic states, with freezing, just standing and not moving and not being able to move. It's awful. But it's not senseless. It's not that you can't do something against it. It's not that you can't bolster this person now for that person then. There are things that can be done, things that can be changed within you that will affect that state as well. So don't give up, and don't sit there thinking this is all there is, because that's the reality when you're in the room. This is all there is. even though you know that's not true, even though you can look outside the room and remember things before, and it sounds ridiculous to someone who doesn't know it, but you know it's not true, but you also know that this is your current reality and this is the way it's going to be forever. So other people can relate to that, and if there are, welcome to comment. If I can help in any way I can, I will. So yeah, hope some of that helps. I'm still here and I'm still alive, so there you go. There's proof of the pudding that you can get out of these things, and it does get better, even if you don't want to believe that right at the moment. It does. God, my beard's really white. I look like Father Christmas. Now I'm able to re-emerge myself in wonderful nature again. Fantastic. One of the things that annoys me is the stigma around depression. And there are various degrees of depression, like I said. But there's also this horrible stigma that if you suffer depressions, you're in some way a damaged person, or don't want to be around him, or don't want to have to hang around her because she has those phases, or I don't know. It's all very weird. It's just something. People wouldn't find that horrific. Well, they do actually. I was going to say they wouldn't find it horrific if you had relapses into happiness, but then there are people who have mania. So, in any case, the stigma around depression is awful. It doesn't tell you anything about the person at all. So, don't stigmatize people about their depression. Don't tell them to just get out of it. Don't tell them to just get happy and it'll all be okay and think positive and all that kind of thing. None of that helps. Be there with somebody if they allow you, because it's another thing. You isolate yourself because you don't want to pile it onto somebody else, and so you avoid contact with other people if you can. You can't always have to go to work and do my job, where I'm confronted with people all day, every day, and want to be a nice, caring person and listen to people's troubles. I listen to people's troubles all day, and they have no idea that I have troubles of my own, and that's okay. That's not their fault. But if you're a friend of somebody who's suffering, one of the best things you can do is just be with them, like Keith Flint, like Robin Williams, like lots of other people that we know, where people say, there was no clue beforehand that this guy was going to do this. You have no idea what's going on in their head 5 minutes before they decide to hang themselves. So don't look for a depressive personality in the rest of their life. It doesn't look like that. I'm sure it looks like that sometimes, or it does look like that sometimes. People with terrible clinical depression look like that sometimes, but that's not everybody. Be there. Be there. Be one of the people that gives it, cares. Because one of the things about your reality in that moment is that nobody cares. Nobody cares. So if you've got somebody who does care, and is a reminder that some people do care, then that's really useful. There are realities, you see. There's a reality for a schizophrenic person, there's a reality for a manic depressive person, or all kinds of states of mind. There's a reality for the sleeper. There's a reality for the person who thinks they're awake. There's a reality for all of these people who think they're living a normal life. There's a greater reality once you start considering the physics of the universe and realize how fragile everything is, and that everything isn't the way you think it is. That's another reality. It might not be useful in your life when you're getting up and going to work and doing your job, but it's still reality. The reality is you're sitting on a bunch of atoms that consist of almost completely nothing apart from the potential to be a particle. It's completely insane, but that's reality. And so there are realities, including the one you live in your head, but it's not the only reality that you can have. You can choose other realities. Anyway, all the best.